Okay, so my single favorite Matthieu Blazy story is when he got snitched on before Bottega Veneta or Chanel were even in the picture. Okay, imagine with me. Close your eyes and imagine. Close them. You're a young fashion designer with big ambitions. Oh wait, open your eyes for a second. This is a cute picture of Matthieu Blazy when he was preparing his graduate collection. Imagine you're this cute little guy. Imagine that you are offered a job at the most important contemporary fashion house. The mysterious designer who has founded the house has left mysteriously, and now you will replace him as the new secret creative director of Maison Margiela. The pressure of your first big couture show is mounting, but then you have your first couture show and it's a hit. People love it and you're really proud of your work. Are you still imagining with me? Because you wake up the morning after your big show to thousands of articles all over the internet of people saying, "We now know who the creative director of Maison Margiela is. It's this guy. Somebody snitched!" I later found out that Matthieu actually quite liked being anonymous and he was a little bit upset that somebody did snitch on him. But you know who did the snitching? It was international super spy Suzy Minquez. If you don't know, Suzy Minquez is on the Mount Rushmore of fashion critics. She is one of my personal heroes and one of the best to ever do it. I like to imagine Suzy tapping the phone lines at the Maison and bribing security guards. The woman even looks like an international super spy. So this is the photo that launched Matthieu's relationship with the public, and in her review of the show, Suzy said, quote, "It is understandable that Renzo Rosso, whose company, Only the Brave, is behind Margiela, should want to keep Blazy backstage, especially since the founding designer so rarely showed his face. But you can't keep such talent under wraps." To be clear, she did not snitch on anybody. She's a journalist. This is literally her job. She and Matthieu have a fine relationship. They're always seen in photos now. Hello, boss. If you're new here, you should subscribe. This is the best fashion coverage in the entire industry, and it's not close. Buckle up. We move really fast here. Okay, so today you have probably woken up to see your timeline flooded with news that Matthieu Blazy is the new creative director for Chanel. This will likely end up being one of the biggest pieces of fashion news this decade. And I mean, if you're not familiar with the treadmill, we're always kind of swapping in and out, playing musical chairs with our creative directors. But the last year-ish, the last 12 months has been one of the most chaotic switching times for creative directors in the industry's history. More importantly, when the Chanel position opened up, a bunch of designers jumped ship from their own houses in order to apply for the job. Eddie Slimane left Celine after showcasing his final collection there, which seemed suspiciously close to a Chanel collection. Like, imagine giving up on a cushy, high-paying contract for the chance to get in the seat at Chanel. Seems like a huge risk. Additionally, rumors have it that Jonathan Anderson has already left Loewe after being actively pursued for the Chanel job. But as of now, we have no news on that front. And for all our purposes, JWA is still designing the upcoming Loewe men's show that's due in January. Similarly, even though John Galliano has now officially left Margiela, there had been rumors that he was leaving Margiela for months leading up to this, especially because his last couture show was so incredibly good. A lot of people thought that Pier Paolo Piccioli would be trying for it because he left his spot at Valentino back in March, but of course, other rumors suggest that he is going to be the one to fill the spot at Fendi. Others have suggested that Simone Porte-Jacquemus was being interviewed for the position, that Daniel Roseberry of Schiaparelli was being interviewed, that Tom Brown was being interviewed. Many people thought that Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen of The Row were being interviewed. I mean, many folks are desperate to see Jeremy Scott working again after he left Moschino 2 years ago, and a lot of die-hard fans are convinced that Daniela will end up getting the position. All of this has yet to be seen. What?
Bottega Veneta has named Louise Trotter new creative director.
Oh my gosh. Shit is so crazy right now. And I mean, vibes aside, the decision makers ultimately are making the appointment based on money-making potential, which is why Matthieu got picked. Bottega Veneta has done incredibly well as far as Kering's whole roster is concerned.
I can confirm this. I'm looking at 4 financial reports, all of which have everything else in negative. Bottega is the only one that's positive.
Most folks have seen Blazy's work, even if they don't know it. When Ye went on tour in support of his Yeezus album, the bejeweled masks were straight from the artisanal team at Margiela under Blazy. Matthieu is the 4th creative director in Chanel's history. Coco founded the house, obviously, and designed for over 60 years until her death in 1971. After her, it was Karl Lagerfeld, who designed for over 30 years until his death. And then Virginie Viard came in and designed and then left the company only a few years later, but importantly, did not die. There's a huge puzzle to sort out with Chanel here and now in the present. Karl Lagerfeld is much more so the creator of the Chanel style that we all are aware of, much more so even than Gabrielle herself. Even people who don't like fashion know this look. Tweed suits, lots of costume jewelry, a cheeky, playful attitude, etc. The Karl Lagerfeld look brought Chanel out of obscurity. It was the look that financially saved the company, and it's the look that everyone associates with those iconic double C's. But it's also a look that is currently kind of holding Chanel back as a company. And that's not just a Chanel problem. Every company suffers from this problem. You can't just keep pushing the exact same aesthetic forever. Sometimes you need to update things. But Chanel has enjoyed success with a mostly unchanging aesthetic for much longer than most brands could ever hope for. Further complicating things is that the oldest, wealthiest customers of Chanel still want that Karl era. But they seem to be some of the only ones who do. Virginie Viard tried her hardest to update it, but she was trying to bring an evolution for Chanel to a customer base that was clinging on to the work of her predecessor and who did not see her more youthful attempts at clothing very positively. This is the problem that Matthieu is being brought in to solve. What is Chanel if it isn't this? The creative director of Chanel is the most desirable job in fashion for two reasons. One is the really obvious one. There is just massive name recognition behind that company. And two, for how big it is, they've never had tryouts for a creative director before. Gabrielle Chanel had zero interest in giving creative responsibility to someone else while she was designing there. And also, the creative director model kind of didn't exist at that time. Karl Lagerfeld got the position because the Wertheimer brothers, the private owners of Chanel, went to him directly and convinced him to leave his job at Chloé to come work for them. And after Karl died, Virginie Viard essentially inherited the position as his successor. Chanel has never meaningfully had tryouts for the top creative spot. Blazy is the first one. I am for real an actual fan of Matthieu Blazy. I've actually been a fan of his as long as I have been into fashion. He's one of the first designers I actually found. Danielle and I groan constantly in previous episodes, if you already watched the channel, about the fact that we don't go to Milan Fashion Week and cannot see his work at Bottega Veneta. It was like the number one thing that made us wish that we were in Milan. So yeah, I'm already coming from a place of liking Matthieu's work and being excited about whatever he ends up doing in the future. And additionally, I am of two minds about this appointment. One, I think this will be good for the industry overall. And two, I think this is going to result in some killer collections of clothes. This is good for the industry because it sets a good example. Blazy is a designer's designer. For years, he's been known and admired by fashion industry folks. He's a great example of what a designer should be. He's very curious, he's excellent at his job, he's an awesome leader, and he's also just not attention grabbing. And of course, as a YouTuber, I do need to acknowledge that I fucking love attention. I love attention. It's great. But in the industry generally, we could really use some non-celebrity designers to kind of balance out the celebrity ones. And that's not because we hate celebrities or, okay, wait, I'm just actually gonna speak for myself here. I do not want the position of creative director to become synonymous with socialite. I don't think I have to explain why that would be ridiculous and bad. Matthieu has spent most of his career buckling down and just doing excellent work without trying to catch the spotlight too much. Here is a relevant quote from Vanessa Friedman's feature on Blazy from 2023. Quote, Blazy told Mr. Pinal that he thought Bottega should focus on craft rather than design, that it should be a house, not a brand. And that may sound like semantics, but it is the difference between a garment that advertises its point of origin and a garment that slips seamlessly into a wardrobe, end quote. And if you are wanting further context for Matthieu's appointment, Vanessa Friedman is pretty much the only fashion news person that I consult because she is not clickbaity. There's no SEO optimization for her stuff. She is just an extremely knowledgeable fashion critic, and she is able to give excellent, complete context to anything that happens. Strongly recommend. Additionally, we've gotten a crazy amount of context about Matthieu's leadership style. When he was first brought into Maison Margiela, he was brought up to, his fancy office, this is the boss's office, corner office, beautiful view and whatever. He really didn't go up there very much. He moved his office down to a desk that was just on the floor of the atelier so that he could, be close to the work that was going to bear his name. I guess not technically bear his name. You know what I mean. And remember that artisanal collection that was so good that Susie Minquez snitched on his identity? That collection came about through extensive fabric research. We have another quote here from Laura May Todd at the New York Times. Quote, "This show for Maison Margiela's Spring 2014 artisanal collection, which Blazy has created anonymously, was about my interest in rare fabrics. I went to Flagstaff, Arizona for a private collector's Frank Lloyd Wright textiles. I went to New York to find a woman who had Fortuny scraps. I traveled to France, Belgium, and Italy," end quote. Now, if that sounds very Margiela-esque to you, like finding the perfect vintage textiles and then finding beautiful things to do with it, you'd be right. That is very Margiela-esque of him. And furthermore, when he came into Bottega Veneta, Matthieu actually brought some of the Bottega Veneta artisans into the design meetings so that he and the other designers could speak with the people that will actually be executing it with their hands while they create the collection. That way there's much less of this like ivory tower hegemony, like we are the designers and you are the artisans and you do what we say. I personally do believe that there are too many design teams in fashion that are just a bunch of dorks on their laptops like scrolling through Pinterest, but Blazy seems to hate that way of working, which is great for brands that pride themselves on their artisanal craft. And this isn't just me like demonstrating that like Matthieu is like a nice chill guy. I'm sure he is very nice and chill, but Bottega Veneta is not, do you know this? Bottega Veneta is not the name of a guy. You've heard of Venice, right? Italian Disneyland. So Venice is in a region of Italy that is called the Veneto. Bottega Veneta just means Venetian workshop.
Matthieu Blazy is the new creative director of Chanel.
Did they just announce it?
Yeah. Just now.
What?
3 minutes ago.
I thought it was supposed to, damn it. Okay, well, it's official, folks. We were actually taking a really big, dude, that's so crazy. We were taking a really big risk recording this right now because we really might have been wasting our time, because if the rumors turned out to be rumors, then like all of this would have been for nothing. I am so glad, but also now I am so panicked. We have to edit this so fast. Okay, when Matthieu Blazy decided to bring artisans into the design process, he was certainly doing that because he's a good leader and a nice guy, but he also wanted the core idea of Bottega Veneta does not work if the designers and the artisans are separate. Everyone must work together for the workshop to be a workshop. It's brilliant stuff. Okay, let's do it right. When Matthieu Blazy decided to bring those artisans into the design studio, what he was communicating was, it's not a Venetian workshop if we're just up here on our laptops looking at pretty pictures and then telling the designers what to do. Like, part of the workshopness is that you bring the artisans in and you don't design without consulting the people that actually have decades of experience making beautiful things. Everyone needs to work together in order for the workshop to be a workshop. So that's some good leadership both at Margiela and Bottega Veneta, but you'll notice that the style of leadership also fits perfectly with the voice of both of those houses. Margiela would do things like going around the world and finding interesting scraps of textiles and then finding a way to use them all together for this new vision. That is an extremely Margiela move. Bottega Veneta, the Venetian workshop, he incorporated the artisans into the design process. He's able to see the voice of the house and then understand how he can bring that into the modern world and still keep things going in a way that's going to keep people interested. Do you know, okay, speaking of all of this, do you know that Daniela and I are full-time fashion critics? This is our one job. This is not a side hustle, and it is our only source of income. And you can be part of the journey of us bringing you the best fashion coverage ever. This is a little bit of a weird episode for us. Usually we're running around Paris attending runway shows and bringing you just the most in-depth analysis that we possibly can. We have no focus on celebrities, no lifestyle bullshit, no beauty, anything else. We just focus on fashion. If you want to be part of that journey, or if you just want to watch a bunch of exclusive interviews and extra videos, you should join the Patreon. YouTube pays terribly and sponsorships are undependable. The only way we can do this for the rest of our lives, and buddy, let me tell you, we're doing this for the rest of our lives. We can only do that with your help. Please join the Patreon right now. Or wait, watch the video. Open like a new tab with the Patreon and like commit it to memory that you're gonna do it, but watch the rest of this video. Beyond his work at all of the individual houses, which I like a lot, I am very drawn to Matthieu's sense of curiosity, which has seemed to be the guiding light for all of the decisions in his career. He started his career designing at Raf Simons, which is an independent company, which among other things revolutionized menswear with the skinny silhouette. I mean, it was also Tom Brown and Eddie Slimane, but you know, those three people together, they are not relevant to this video. It was Raf. Blazy said he left Raf Simons so that he could pursue women's wear design at Maison Margiela. Margiela is a conglomerated company that I like so much that I've committed a whole bunch of videos to it. When Blazy left Margiela, he wanted to learn more about the business side of fashion design, so he took a job at Celine under Phoebe Philo. Celine is part of the money-making machine that is LVMH. And then Blazy got a call from Raf saying that he was going to Calvin Klein. Blazy joined him. After the Raf era at Calvin Klein ended, Matthieu went to help the studio artist Sterling Ruby launch his brief attempt at couture. Finally, Blazy was called out to Bottega Veneta to work on the design team under Daniel Lee. When Lee left, Blazy got promoted to creative director. That is, in case there's any confusion, a fucking impressive resume. But beyond the resume, it's his motivation for changing jobs that I personally am the most interested in. He wants to learn. Instead of hyperfixating on a single way of designing, Blazy seems to continuously engage in this beginner's mind. Oh, I have all this experience doing menswear. I should learn more about women's wear. Oh, I should try out couture. That was fun. Let's try a really different type of couture. Oh, I should learn more about the business side of all of this. Like, it's almost as if his path to Chanel was planned from the start. Blazy's love of craft and the way that he keeps craft very close to himself and his design process and his team, that's going to be incredible for Chanel. Chanel owns a number of different artisanal craft companies that collectively are referred to as the metier d'art. Like, they own Lesage, the greatest tweed maker in the world. They have their own pleating company. They have their own shoemaker, etc., etc. If you want to learn more about the details of the métier d'art, Daniela wrote an episode where we dove super deep into it. It's an absolutely phenomenal episode. My point is that Matthieu Blazy is perfect for Chanel because he is such a strong advocate for artisanal craft, something that, unfortunately, is more and more disappearing from even the luxury world. He's demonstrated that he not only thrives at companies that have an artisanal element to them, he's demonstrated that he knows how to make those artisanal programs better. Daniela and I are really excited about this chapter. I think Daniela has been his #1 fan and hugest advocate for him going to Chanel for the last 6 months. I've heard about that almost every single day. I would love to hear what everybody else thinks in the comments. Go join the Patreon. It's the only way we're able to operate. Peace.